Let's see. Yay.
Yay!
Merry
Yay!
Christmas to all and to all a good night.
Or to all a good morning, afternoon, whatever
Yeah.
time it is that you're listening to this.
Buenos tardes. Mm. Uh-oh. This is, I think this is the closest we have to a Christmas episode.
Well, we had a few more that we did. We read some
Alexa, shut up.
holiday stories, but this is like the most Christmassy stories we've read so far, I think.
I think so.
All right. Well,
Let me,
if you're
let me,
just tuning in, welcome to the Love It
Jorge.
podcast. We are going to be reading and discussing some classic holiday literature. We're going to be reading and discussing A Visit from St. Nicholas and excerpts from Dickens' Christmas Carol.
Yay.
So, fun fact, I've never actually read A Christmas Carol. And
But you've
I know
seen
a
all
lot of, yeah,
the
I
funny
know
versions of it, yeah.
people that have seen versions of the Christmas Carol, like seen the live show or seen the movies, but I
Hmm.
don't know too many people that have actually read the story. So I'm
I used
excited
to
to kind
read it
of,
every Christmas.
you did?
I used to read it every Christmas. It's been several Christmases since I did it, but when I was younger, I read it because you can read it in a day easily.
Yeah.
And it's an easy one if you had families sitting around the house and it's kind of noisy. It's an easy one to kind of go in and out of. It doesn't, it's 98 pages, I think, the book. It's not very long, less than 100 pages. But you went last year, you went to the same play as I did. There was a play,
Yeah, at the
right?
Alliance.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah.
Alliance.
And that was it. And they did a really good job with that one.
Hmm.
Yeah. They did a really good job with that one.
Yeah, they did a great job. One of my friends was actually in the show. So
Mhm.
whenever I have a friend that's an actor that's like in a show, I always want to go and support. And the Alliance always puts on good shows. I think the
Yes.
Alliance is a great theater in Atlanta. Um, but
I'm
yeah,
surprised. I'm surprised that theater is still alive. I like theater. I'm not nothing against it, but I
yeah.
just with 3D and animation and just the way movies have boomed out and the way they project them on the screen. It's surprising that theater has lasted. I'm very happy that it has, but
Hmm.
it's you know what I mean. It just doesn't seem like it would still have traction. It almost
Yeah.
seems like it wouldn't exist. I don't know. If you'd
I know
asked
what
somebody
you
100 years ago, yeah.
I know
Hmm.
exactly what you mean. And all my friends that are like actors, directors, and like lovers of theater, that's one of the reasons we all like try to support each other when we're in shows. And we try to motivate people to support live theater because we don't want it to become a dying art form. But the thing that I think that makes it appealing is that it is live in the moment.
Hmm.
There's nothing quite like being live in the moment and watching human beings experience a separate reality right in front of you in the moment. It's very different from watching something that's pre-recorded. Like what we're doing right now is live, right?
Hmm.
So it's like anything could happen. So I think that alone is what's going to keep it from becoming a dying art form, or at least I hope.
Yeah. And I guess what? So TV originally was live, and then they had upsets, and things would happen, and they couldn't have those things happen. So they started with what, like a 30-second delay, and then a few minute delay, and then eventually it's just everything's pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Almost everything. I don't think anything's really live on TV, right?
No, I don't think
NFL,
so.
football might be live. That might be
Maybe.
live. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
yeah. There is a slight delay. And even I think with what we're doing right now, there might be like a second delay, but it's
Mhm.
still live, we're not, it's still live, even though
But I
there's a
could
slight
say
delay.
something like bad, or there could be something that broke rules and it wouldn't get caught by YouTube. I don't think, right?
I don't know. I really don't know.
You don't either. But yeah, I like theater I like theater because it feels awkward. It feels awkward to be kind of in that you're on the fourth wall staring at somebody, and it just feels awkward to sit there and watch them. But it's like you're in the room and they don't know you're there. That's the
Hmm.
weirdest thing about it. It's like you're sitting in the room watching life happen, and they don't know you're there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, but I've always been lucky enough that when I've watched theater, I don't think I've ever had a seat in the back. I've always had a seat relatively up close. So I've always kind of felt like I say that I was sitting in the room. There's something about that.
Yeah.
Something about that. It's just cool. But
Yeah. And I feel like black box theater, you feel that way even more because black box theater is so intimate and so close.
black box theater. What is
Black
that?
box theater just means a small space, as
Okay.
opposed to like a big stage like the Alliance. It's just like a
Mhm.
a smaller space, up close. Um, and that is very, very different than having a big distance like the Alliance.
Even the
Because
Alliance
as an
felt pretty good.
actor on a stage, there
Mhm.
is like enough separation that it's a lot easier to kind of forget the audience. I mean, trained actors are trained to forget the audience anyway, but in black box theater, you're really close to the audience. So,
I felt in the Alliance, I felt like that was a small theater, but maybe I've been spoiled.
no,
Um,
I mean, that's still like, I mean, it's small compared to like the Fox Theater, but it's still
mhm.
a pretty big theater compared to what's known as black box theater.
Heard. If
Like, I
anybody's
mean,
listening, they don't know where we are. We're talking about the Alliance Theater in Atlanta, right?
yes,
Atlanta? Is it
yes,
Atlanta? Okay.
Atlanta.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, so I've seen a lot of live productions of this story, but I've never actually read it. So I'm excited to read parts of it today. But we're actually going to start with,
Hmm. A Visit from St. Nicholas, which I've got the backstory on this one.
okay.
Let's see. A Visit from St. Nicholas, routinely referred to as The Night Before Christmas and Twas the Night Before Christmas with a TWAS. From its first line is a poem first published anonymously under the title Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas in 1823. So was that 200 years ago?
Yeah.
Jeez. Authorship has been attributed to Clement Clark Moore, who claimed authorship in 1837. Okay. But it was also been suggested that Henry Livingston Jr. may have written it. So
Okay.
it's the best known verses ever written by an American. That's what this is supposed to be. But that's fair. That's
Yeah.
a good thing. I mean, I guess both those were Americans, the people who came forth late. Why would you publish something that popular and not claim credit for it?
Yeah. I don't know. I think some people like to remain anonymous for various reasons.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I gotcha. I mean, it's a pretty popular story. I think I mean, get scared of money because I mean, you probably
Yeah.
make some money on that one.
Right?
Yeah. How do you want to read this? Do you want me to read it? You want to read it? What do you want to do?
Um,
Not very
well,
long.
if anybody's watching, comment and let us know if you want me to read this one or Brian, or if you want us to split it up.
I think you normally win on these polls, but I feel like the audience is slanted. Um, let's see. 1837. Oh, you know, Santa wasn't originally red, right? He was white. His outfit was white. The only reason his outfit's
Mm.
red is because of Coca-Cola.
Is that so?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Oh, so
Coca-Cola.
they
Coca-Cola
changed
colored.
it.
Yeah.
When did they change it from white to red?
I don't know. Coca-Cola. Shoot, we could Google it and find out. But yeah, that's Santa's Claus's outfit used to be white, all white.
Huh.
But I
I
think
didn't
red
know
would be
that.
easier, to find him and everything. Like if he got lost in the snow and couldn't make a fire, you'd want to find him. You don't want to wear all white when you're out in the snow.
Right. Right. He'd
Hmm.
camouflage.
Yeah, the reindeer blows a tire. You wouldn't be doing so well out there in the snow. Oh, hold up. So you got a vote, but they like me okay. So I think you win because you got the votes. Mm. Which is
Any
fine.
any more fun Christmas history facts you'd like to share before we start?
Gosh. Oh, everybody knows who Krampus is, right? Krampus is the Rush or the German Christmas one, right? Isn't that like the
You
rough
mean
guy?
Krampus?
Krampus, is that what it is?
Yes, I think most people pronounce it Krampus. So funny story about Krampus. He's like the antithesis of Santa Claus, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah.
wants to like destroy Christmas. So one of my friends, who's also an actress, she created a game called Krampus. And she drew all this amazing art with the
Mhm.
like if you've ever played the game Werewolf or Mafia, it's a communication game. It's so fun. And it's really fun to play with actors, but it's fun to play with anyone. Um, and she designed the art on all these cards. And basically there's Krampus Town and then there's like so there's the villagers who are like the good guys, and then Team
Mhm.
Krampus and Team Village. And it's so fun. But yes, I'm very familiar with the Krampus character. I actually saw the movie. There was like an animated movie called Krampus that I saw last year.
I saw a horror movie years ago where they obviously they took it to the nth degree, but it had
Yeah.
Crumpus or Krampus. It's Krampus. I thought it was Crumpus. It doesn't matter.
I'm sure people
Whatever.
pronounce it different ways,
We got
but
to get a German on here to pronounce it for us correctly. Do you
yeah,
know?
maybe that's the correct German pronunciation is Krampus. But
I know a couple German people I can ask.
yeah.
But there's then Ren and Stimpy did a version of the same thing. The
Hmm.
Santa Claus. It's the shaven yak. Do you know that one?
No.
Okay, Ren and Stimpy was big when I was a kid, but so essentially it's the same thing, but it's a big yak, which looks like a big moose, comes down the chimney, um, and you leave out a razor blade and shaving cream, and he shaves in your sink and leaves behind all the hair in the sink for you.
Oh gosh.
That's it's the exact same. Has all the music and everything, but that's what he does. He shaves in the mirror, and then you get the leavings. That's what you get and that's the miracle of the shaven yak. So I don't know if
Wow.
anybody remembers Ren and Stimpy, but it was pretty psychedelic.
Yeah, I definitely remember Ren and Stimpy, but not that episode. That's funny.
I think that cartoon was written for people that were enjoyers of lysergic diethylamide, if you know what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
LSD. Yeah, that's what the show's because Beavis and Butthead was written for marijuana users,
Right.
whereas
Right.
Ren and Stimpy is written for yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely a
anyway,
cartoon for adults. Uh,
yes, but that's fun. That's a lot of people grew up watching cartoons, so they're trying to cash in on that. I thought Ren and Stimpy was a great cartoon.
yeah, I
But
don't remember much of it. I don't remember really liking it a whole lot, but
and the Grinch is a knockoff of this same story. It's the exact same thing. I mean, it's
yeah,
the exact same thing. Grinch essentially plays Santa Claus.
that's right.
Yeah. And he doesn't run into Santa the whole time, which is odd. When he's doing
I,
all that stuff on Christmas night, they call it Christmas, right? In
yeah,
the French?
yeah.
Yeah. Surprised they don't call it Who Night or whatever. But um anyway,
Yeah, you would think he might run into Santa.
yeah.
Um, all right, so are we ready to dive in?
Yeah, yeah. I think you won on that one, by the way. So
Cool.
so you
I'll
got the
read this
story.
one. I will say I have like a Christmas cold, a winter
A Winter Wonderland.
sniffles, but so my voice isn't as soothing as it usually is, but I'm happy to read this one, and then the next one we'll let Brian read.
Here we go. And this one is from, we're getting it again from the poetryfoundation.org, which we got all the post stuff from. And I put the link in the chat along with the link for the other story from Project Gutenberg. But we got this one from Poetry Foundation. They're awesome. They're
Yes,
awesome. They're awesome. They're awesome. Real simple site, not a lot of junk on the site. You just get your literature. You don't have to go through a lot of pop ups and everything. So you're good.
right. Yes. So
Yeah.
shout out to Poetry Foundation. So if you want to read along, A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clark Moore.
Or Livingston. We don't know.
Right. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang to my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver, so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles and coursers they came. He whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away all. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sled, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew, like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
Yay!
Oh, that
That's
was
a good
fun.
one. Yeah, that's a pretty one.
Yeah, I love the rhyme scheme. I've heard this story before, and as I was reading it, I started remembering actually. So I was in chorus in middle school. And as I was reading this, the song, we actually sang like a winter recital, and we actually learned a song to this to these lyrics, and the song started coming back to me.
There's a song for this. All right.
Yeah,
So
it
is
was
it borrow
like
from this or it's
it's
singing?
these lyrics, but just in song form. So it started to come back to me. It was like, "'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse." And then it's very much, let's see if I can remember it. It started to come back to me.
Well, he's trying to remember the pace, right? The
Yeah.
iambic.
hmm He was
It's
dressed all in
pretty.
fur from his head to his toes.
I like that he's little and those little reindeer, like they're real
Mhm.
little, which is interesting. Um,
Yeah. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang to my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. And then the moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. And it's like this song. I remember this song. It honors like the rhythm of the poem, but in like a sing-songy way. Like parts of it we actually. I mean, this was in middle school, so it was a long time ago. But
there's one that Louis Armstrong did.
oh, really?
That's weird. Yeah, that's really weird. Because he's got that, he's got that voice, that, he does that.
He has
What
like
was
a
it?
husky voice.
Earthy trees of green,
Yeah.
red roses too.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy Buffett did it. He was probably a little
You
inebriated
did?
when he did it. Yeah, he was probably a little inebriated. He probably sung it at the beach. So, it's all the childless parents that went to the beach for Christmas. He sings it to them. But I was looking through the song. So the song, the way you're singing it, sounds like kind of like a number from Grease, where they kind of do a melody and then they do that's the middle part where they kind of do it like spoken word. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of got that from it. But
Yeah, it's sort of like parts of it feel kind of like talky, like almost like a rap.
yeah, it's like
Um,
spoken word. Yeah, I got you.
yeah. I can't remember it very well, but parts of it started coming and then I remembered, oh wait, I sang this song. But I'm sure it's been adapted into various types of like sing-songy. Um,
Mhm.
but I really
And
like the imagery and I love the
it's
part at the end where he like puts the finger on his nose.
Well, there's parts of it that I don't remember, but those are the parts that don't seem they're not indicative of our time period anymore. Like when it
Yeah.
let me think if I can find it. Shoot. There was one part. Hold on.
I really like the
Oh, it's
imagery.
pipe stuff. I don't remember the pipe stuff at all.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah.
No, I remember him having the pipe in his mouth at all. But they might have cut that out of a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because smoking became a bad thing for a while. So
Oh, yeah, maybe that's why,
Santa's
because
not allowed to
people
smoke anymore.
realized it was unhealthy.
Is it? Is it? Not if Santa does it. Oh, but
But
yeah,
I
that's
uh, I
probably
love
false.
the imagery. I love the alliteration. I love
Mhm.
the meter, and obviously I really like the personification. I love all that stuff about this poem. And I just like the nostalgia that you feel when you read it. It's
Yeah,
it's nice.
before this, what did people even have for Christmas? Because Christmas Carol's really long, and Christmas Carol, some parts are really sad. Um,
Yeah.
so if that's all you had before, so what else? What else is there? I think about the old Christmas stuff. This is one of them, obviously. This one's old. This one's what we say was 18 something.
I
And then
also
Chris,
think I don't I correct me if I'm wrong, but I also think that this story popularized the concept of reindeer. Like I don't know if before the story was written, reindeer were really
I
popularized.
don't know. That's
I
worth a
think this
Google.
I think this story kind of paved the way for like the popularization of the character of Santa Claus with his reindeer, and also sort of solidified what the character looks like because of the vivid description. Um, so,
So Santa's reindeer comes from a combination of Sami folklore,
mhm.
Norse mythology,
Okay.
Dutch Christmas tales, real world reindeer herding.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe because he's get pulled by a sleigh. It's just common knowledge or it's common sense that he would have that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that the concept of reindeer was predates this poem, but I
You're talking about the
think
names.
well, I think the poem just popularized it more.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the poem itself also just popularized like the clear, vivid description of Santa Claus.
The names definitely come from that.
Yeah.
And the Dunder and Blixen, those are Dutch for thunder and lightning, and Donner and Blitzen are German for thunder and lightning.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
And
so there you go.
Cupid, I guess, is in German. Does that mean something different than it means to us? What
I mean,
Cupid?
like the little love child thing.
Yeah.
What was Cupid? He's the love child of um, who's the goddess of wisdom and beauty?
Aphrodite.
Is it Aphrodite? So it'd be Aphrodite and Zeus, or is that Norse? Is it a Norse mythology? It's been a while since I did that one. Oh, and then Rudolph came from the song, the
Yes, from the
1939
actual
Montgomery
song.
Ward.
Yeah.
It's a 1939. It was written in 1939 for Montgomery Ward department store holiday promotion.
Hmm.
So that song's a holiday promotion, I guess. And then our idea of Santa being in red is a Coca-Cola promotion. So we're
Oh,
all
I
kind of
just,
victims of commerce.
yeah, I just remembered parts of this song. It's coming to me. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what do my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and a tiny reindeer?
I feel
That's
like you're
kind of
just
how it
remembering the
went.
poem. I feel like you're just remembering the poem.
But uh it was very much like a balance of sort of like talking parts of it and then like singing parts of it. Uh, but I really like that part too. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a
I wonder
luster
if
of
your song
midday.
kept all those words to the original one.
Yeah,
I wonder if it did.
it did. I remember it did.
Do you think it had the smoking parts and all that jazz?
That's a good question. See, I don't remember. Again,
A
this
lot
was
of the
when I
stuff
was
kind of
in
worked
middle
out.
school. Hi,
I mean, but
Mopar.
everything gets modified now. My brother just realized that movies have alternative endings.
Oh
Because
yeah.
he watched a movie the other day and he asked me if I remember seeing those, and I said, well, yeah, when we used to have DVDs, I remember the DVDs would always have alternative endings. And I guess he watched a movie online or something, and it gave an ending different than the one he remembered originally, having watched it. Um, but he was asking me if I remembered that. I remember them on DVDs that you get a movie and it'd have 5 different endings at the end. You spend last hour watching endings. So
Yeah.
maybe this
Well,
one's, in other words, we've been doing that for a while. We've been modifying art for a long time.
right.
I have my own opinion on that, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Well, I feel like with films, there's always like a longer cut, a shorter cut, a director's cut, a movie release cut. Um,
I have found the director's cuts generally seem like they're better because they're longer, and I feel like that's what there's a Adorno and Horkenmeyer. I think their book's called Dialects of Enlightenment, and they say that art is retarded when you let the sponsor and the censor in the room with the artist. So the artist has a certain idea, vision for their work, and then the sponsor, whoever's funding it, and then the censor who needs to whittle things out that they don't think are appropriate. When they get room with the artist, it retards art.
yeah.
It means that it can't grow anymore. And I feel like
Right.
they were talking about radio back then, the way
Yeah.
radio is modified, but that seems prevalent now. I don't know, because you can see raw art like Dickens' Christmas Carol. Um, how many versions of that movie have you
Mhm.
seen? I mean, versions of that in movie form, um, in Scrooged. That's a
Yeah.
version of it. Yeah, and that's a modern day version of it. It's not
Yeah.
bad, but it's not the same story. But it's not bad. The best one's the one with Patrick Stewart, though, by the way.
I've never
Anyway, I don't know if
seen
you've
that
seen that.
one.
Oh, I like Patrick Stewart a lot. I think he's a very good actor. He was the best thing about Star Trek. So,
Yeah, he's great. Mopar, how are you doing today?
yay.
Thank you for the holiday wishes. On
Oh
ET,
yeah.
movie
So
police
yeah,
had guns, but there's a new version where guns have been replaced by
yeah,
mobile phones. Yep, that's right,
yeah.
Mopar.
They took all those out. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah,
took
art
23
keeps
out.
getting modified. I do have mixed feelings about that as well. Because on one hand, I feel like we should honor the original.
Mhm.
I think as long as you let people know, like, as long as you're very clear with your audience, like, by the way, this is a modification, and you're
Mhm.
not so everyone understands this is not the original. I think as long as you're communicating that clearly, I don't have like any big issues with it because I do think it's important to like honor the original and not like pretend that it doesn't exist, right? So,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of. I would rather the art go completely bare on its own, but a lot of art. What used to be, if you look at like what was it, Picasso's, Matisse, those guys back in France, when they were doing art shows, essentially they would just get money together and rent a building and put their art up on the walls and people would come by and see it. No sponsor, no censor. They're just, oh, they might have like a rich person to help them pay the rent, but there really wasn't a lot to do. But nowadays, if you wanted to publish a movie or a theater piece or a book, you're going to have to go through those because that's the only way you're going to be able to reach everybody. Is
Mm-hmm.
you need bigger finance than you would now. Instead of just renting a an apartment in downtown Paris, it's different now. So
Yeah.
I get that there's things have changed, but man, that rawness of it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So, do you have a favorite part of this poem? Like, do you have like any particular part that you're like, oh, I really like how this is written?
I like the kids dancing with sugar plums in their head. I think that's very indicative of that time period that everything associated with a child's happiness is around sweets and
Yeah.
candies and like that's what they want for Christmas. They want
Yeah.
cookies and sweets. They don't want the things we want now. Like food is not on any child's list these days,
No.
but
It's
it's
funny.
all now.
I
Yeah.
performed in a comedy show yesterday. I
Mhm.
told you about the elf performance I did where I
Mhm.
was playing an elf and I was
Don't you
actually
do any of those
sing
jokes?
yeah, I used some
Oh,
of I yeah, some of the jokes were influenced by your suggestions, but I ended up just it was just all song.
mhm.
Because that's what the director I presented the idea to the director and the director was like, "Yeah, make it a whole song." I did a little bit of talking at the beginning and then I sang the song and then I did some talking afterwards.
I
Um,
got you.
I could do it now if you want to hear it.
That might not be is that be appropriate for the kids?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nothing inappropriate for kids, really.
That's up here.
Mopar, do you want to hear this song? It's really short, but it aligns with what we were talking about, how kids back in this time period, all they wanted for Christmas was like candy, and versus 2024.
Oh, so here, juxtaposition that back then kids were enamored with the idea of getting sweets and sugary things for Christmas, no obesity issues. And
Yeah.
nowadays, candy and sweets aren't on the Christmas list at all. Everybody's got obesity issues.
Oh, yeah.
That's all. Maybe that means they're having it so much that they don't want it as a gift. And maybe they should have it so little that they do have it on the Christmas list. Oh, maybe that's what that means. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, I think you got a vote to do it.
Uh, do I?
I think so. Looked like you did.
Oh, Mopar. All right, I can sing this for you really quickly. It's kind of funny, I think. You could tell me. All right, here we go. Jolly old St. Nicholas, listen to me whine. Kids these days want crazy things. It's stressing out my mind. No more trains or building blocks. No more shiny cars. Now they want gender neutral dolls and trips to Mars. It's holiday, not Christmas now. Santa got the note. If I say the C word here, I might get the vote. They want gifts like yoga goats and drones to feed their fish. One kid even dared to write, "Bring me Taylor Swift." No more candy, no more fudge. That's all in the past. Now it's oat milk cookies here and kale that's freshly masked. Kids want gifts I've never heard. How do we comply? A gluten-free AI powered sled? Oh no, not AI. No more candy canes or toys. Those were things of yore. Now it's carbon neutral apps and plants that self-explore. One kid asks for NFTs. What's that even mean? Can someone bring back puppies, please, or dolls that aren't obscene? No more asking for new shoes. That's all. I lost my place. Oh yeah. No more asking for new shoes. It's TikTok fame they crave. Followers and viral views. Can we Social media is depraved. Can we just bring the 80s back and call this season long? Where toys were toys and kids had fun without all this tech gone wrong. Jolly old St. Nicholas, I've reached my final straw. One kid just wrote, "I'd like the moon," and Santa's crypto law. These lists are full of crazy things that elves aren't trained to do. I'm not a wizard. I'm not a bot. That's it. I quit. I'm through. And then that's not how I performed it. I performed it in a much more nasally voice, but I don't want to hurt my voice. I
I got
talked
you.
way too much yesterday. And then I ripped up the Christmas list and threw it out into the audience and I really amped it up in the actual show.
There we
But
go.
it got some laughs. So
I'm with you. I'm
but
with
yeah,
you.
it's just making fun of how nowadays kids don't want the the old traditional stuff that they wanted during this time period when this story was
Mm.
written in the 1930s.
Well, this is
I
1820s.
mean 1830s, yeah.
Well, back then, I
1830s,
don't
yeah.
guess. Well, back then, probably Christmas was just spending time with your family, getting some sweets that your mom might make, cookies or something, because people didn't have a lot of money, so there wasn't, you know what I mean. Food was a pleasure, not necessarily. Everybody got it.
Right.
Yeah, because what the life expectancy back then was 50, maybe. You know what I mean? People didn't live very long because
Yeah.
people didn't eat constantly.
Yeah.
When I used to read children's stories and I was writing all those kid stories, I was reading all the old children's stories, all of them from that time period. Like every one of them, the children would get hungry in the story, and that would be the dilemma. Even in Peter Pan, Peter is flying the children to Neverland, and he just leaves them because he's a mean little kid. He just
Yeah.
leaves them, and he'd come back by once in a while and act like he didn't remember them, and he probably didn't because he's just a kid.
Yeah.
But their main dilemma was they were starving in the air and they were flying around. They couldn't find food. That's why they needed Peter to bring them to Neverland. So
Right.
apparently, yeah, I don't know. I guess food food was a pleasure at one point and not necessarily but anyway.
So you really like the kids the visions of sugar plums dancing in
I
their
thought that was
heads.
cute. Yeah, I thought that was
That's
cute.
like one of your favorite parts. I think one of my favorite parts is towards the end here when, with a wink of his eye and a twist of his head, soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. I
Oh,
think I like it because I can really visualize because it's so descriptive. I can really
mhm.
see it in my mind's eye. See this comforting old soul kind of everything's okay, there's nothing to dread kind of thing. And then I really like the laying his finger aside of his nose. For some reason, I remember hearing this story when I was a kid, and that part always stuck out to me as if it's doing that is sort of like a magic trick. Like that helps him go up the chimney if he puts his finger I always thought that was kind of fun. So, but if you're
Oh,
watching or listening, comment below, let us know what your favorite part of this classic story is, if you have a
this is
favorite.
this is a use of the poem, uh, a famous use of it from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Does
Mm-hmm.
that use it in there? When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and Eddie with a man in his pajamas and a dog chain tied to his wrists and ankles. What the? You remember that scene in the movie? Did you watch that movie? You
National
had to have watched that movie.
Lampoons.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that the only National Lampoons you've ever seen?
No, I've seen a bunch of those with Chevy Chase.
No, I mean, Wilk said so. Those National Lampoons. But I mean, there's. Well, have you seen National Lampoon's Class Reunion?
No.
Oh, the main character, the bad guy in it, is Akitez's dad, the guy
Oh.
who was the lead singer for Red Hot Chili Peppers. His
Oh.
dad was a famous actor, and he's the bad guy, and he's just weird. He
Okay.
wears a dress and runs around and kills people with a hammer. But yeah, he looks just like the lead singer from Red Hot Chili Peppers. But
Oh,
that's
funny.
one of National Lampoon's first movies. But yeah, our
Yeah,
movies are all very weird.
I like the films that I have seen with Chevy Chase. I've seen all the Christmas Vacations. Um, I've seen some of those where they just go on vacations and stuff. I think
So
I
there's
saw
what
the most modern one as well
was
years
that
ago.
the Vegas
The
vacation?
Vegas, yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
There's Vegas Christmas. They go to Paris, and then they just go across country to Wally World. That's the only four.
Yeah.
Is that all four? I think that's all four. Yeah.
Mopar says that was an awesome song. Thank you. I'm glad you got a kick out of it.
Yay. Oh, they liked it. Yay.
It
It was
was
cute.
It was fun writing it. It got some laughs. It was mostly like an improv show with some sketch comedy. And they asked me to like perform a bit at the like with very little notice, so I didn't really have a lot of time to work on it. But Brian influenced some of those ideas, so thank you.
Uh,
One of these days we should read one of your short stories.
oh no, heavens no. So bad. I have a bunch though. I have a bunch. I have one that'll make you cry. I have several that'll make you cry.
Brian, actually, you've published some of those stories, right?
If anybody reads them, you can be the first. Yeah. No, I have one that's on Amazon, but it's probably junk by now because it's been just sitting out there in the public domain for so long. But
I
yeah,
see.
I don't know. I thought at some point I may actually try to go back to trying to publish stuff, but I don't know. It's a thankless task sending off all that information and getting not getting you don't get a response for 6 or 8 months, and then you get a letter in the mail that pretty much tells you to push off.
Well, my
Yeah,
sister published a few
I remember
children's
you. Yeah, I
stories.
remember you saying that.
Yeah. So it's, if she can
Mine
do
had
it.
talking animals, and that was for some reason when I was trying to publish, there were so many places that were adamant that they wouldn't even touch it if it had talking animals. And
Oh,
I can't
weird.
change it. I know, and I thought, well, that's weird because most of the stories I loved, that's all they had. So, I mean, what about Winnie the Pooh? That's like a whole series of talking
Yeah,
animals.
I still want
But
to do a whole episode related to the Tao of Pooh.
oh, that'd be good. I'm with you. I've been
Comment
listening to it. I
if,
have the audio.
yeah, comment below if that theme appeals to you, because there's a whole philosophy about the Tao of Pooh.
And you
Um,
still don't think Pooh is a woman, do you?
Pooh could be a woman. I
I
feel
love that.
like
I
Pooh
love
Pooh
that.
is gender neutral, but I feel like most
That's
people
fine.
associate Winnie the Pooh as male. But I kind of it could be either way.
Yeah. It isn't going to affect anything, I don't think. And making it gender neutral is fair because if you're going to make a towel of poo, because uh, that's a recent thing that's popped up or that I've noticed that Jesus Christ character was androgynous. So
Oh,
because
really?
there's no sexualization of Jesus throughout the entire story. Never, even when he meets with prostitutes, it could just as well have been a woman. It wouldn't have mattered. Nothing he does in any point in the story would have mattered had he been a woman or a man. It wouldn't have mattered. So that's what a lot of people think that he was androgynous. Why would he have a sexuality? Because he's Jesus. So that's an interesting take on it. Interesting take on it. I think that's probably a little more modernized version.
Yeah,
But
definitely a
it's still
2024
yeah,
take.
but it's fair. I mean, it's fair game
Yeah,
because there's
yeah.
anything to go against that other than a
I
prejudice. Yeah,
I could see how that is a valid perspective.
I mean, his writing is not in any way macho.
But if you think about it, even when you're talking about him, you're just saying he,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
of
And, I
course.
mean, everybody associates Jesus with he. Even when we talk about God, we say most of us still say he in 2024. But yeah, I definitely can follow that train of thought. All right, do you want to move on to our next
We
story?
can. We're gonna pick at this one though, right?
Yes, so we're just
Okay.
going to read some excerpts from,
You have my highlighting, right? Can you see the highlight?
yes.
Okay, cool, cool, cool.
So we're going to
I
read
didn't
some
pick up.
excerpts from the classic story, A Christmas Carol.
And if everybody knows this story, it's been redone so many different ways. And Scrooged is the most modern version that I can think of that did a really, really good job of it. Bill Murray, so good in that movie.
Yes.
And he's likable too, as still a Scrooge character. He's still quite likable. But
Yeah.
but yeah, the story goes. There's I guess a rich fella that puts work ahead of everything else in life, and denies his friends and those that care for him in helping him. He denies them any type of attention, and so he's visited by his old business partner, Jacob Marley. And Jacob Marley tells him, you're going to get three ghosts that are three spirits that are going to visit you in the coming days, and uh, they're going to kind of school you and show you the world how it used to be, how it is now, and how it will be if you continue to live your life this way.
Mm-hmm.
And that straightens him out, and he turns back around,
Mm-hmm.
and God blesses everyone. Feel like Tiny Tim anyway. So
So do
that's
you
for the
wanna
kid.
you wanna read these sections?
We can. I can do the first one if you like.
Okay. You can just read it since I read the last one.
Okay. So the first one is when he's with Jacob Marley, who was his old business partner, who had died. And Jacob Marley in the original Christmas story, the original Christmas Carol, wasn't as much of a miser as he was. So
Mhm.
he was a little. He was not as bad, but he was bad. But he wasn't as bad as Ebenezer Scrooge. And maybe Ebenezer Scrooge kind of doubled down once he didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
So it gets worse. And Jacob Marley, at one point while he's talking to Scrooge, Scrooge references the fact that he's carrying all these chains as a ghost. He's got all these chains attached to him, and he asks him about them, and he says, "I wear the chain I forged in life," replied the ghost. "I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. It is its pattern strange to you?" So I thought that was a cool. It's just a. It's
Mhm.
anyway. It's a cool little setup. But
Mhm.
anyway, um, it's a beautiful story though. And then a little bit further, Scrooge kind of says, "You're a good business guy." But this is Scrooge talking to him. "But you were always a good man of business, Jacob," faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. "Business," cried the ghost, wringing his hands again. "Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business." So that's Jacob Marley saying what he should have been doing instead
Mhm.
of pushing pennies around. He should have been dealing with the people around him and taking care of them. This is a very uh, like serial reciprocity type thing, pay it forward type
Yeah.
philosophy that he's pushing, that Dickens is pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dickens is very much. I think he's very interesting for that. But good spirit. Anyway, so this is Jacob Marley telling him what's about to happen. He's setting up the story. He's giving the that's not editorializing. What's that called? Is that editorializing? No. Um, Exposition. He's giving the exposition.
Exposition. Yeah.
You will be haunted, resumed the ghost, by three spirits. Scrooge's countenance fell almost as low as the ghost's had done. "Is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob?" he demanded in a faltering voice. "It is. I I think I'd rather not," said Scrooge. "Without their visits," said the ghost, "you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Except expect the first tomorrow, when the bell tolls one." "Could I take them all at once and have it over, Jacob?" hinted Scrooge. "Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, the third upon the next night, when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us." So that's him setting up the story that's about to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. And then this is the first ghost. This is the first of three spirits is how he titles it.
Mhm.
Uh, Tell me if you want to stop and talk about any of this. I don't know. You remember the story pretty well, though, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yep.
mean, I'm just I'll probably want to chat about it after
It's a
we
very
read
pretty
these
story.
sections. Yeah.
This is the first ghost. Like I say, I picked parts out that I thought were kind of interesting. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through viewed though some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. The arms were very long and muscular, the hands the same, as if it as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were, like those upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It had a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using. In its duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm.
Wow.
Mm,
So that's the first time I've ever read this. And it's interesting because like this vivid imagery is very different than I'm thinking of all the versions I've seen like through film and theater,
mhm,
and they're very different from the image in my mind when we're reading this. Like I don't recall ever seeing a version with like the light coming out of its head.
mhm.
And I like how it says, um, not so like a child as an old, like a child, yet not so like a child as an old man. So
I think
it's
like a
like,
muscly old man that has that really smooth, pearly skin. You've seen them before, like the old men that are just they're kind of wiry looking,
yeah,
but they're
but
gray.
child proportions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just they're like when you see old men that are whittled, they're whittled
Yeah.
down, but they're still kind of muscular looking. That's what I
Yeah.
imagine. I imagine, yeah, that's
Mhm.
and I guess that's what he uh is that more like a Cupid type character?
Well, Cupid just is sort of like a baby that not like an old um typically when I think of Cupid, I think of Cupid as like a little
Sure.
cute baby.
I don't know
Um
what he was originally. I think Hallmark might have been the one that pushed him into a child completely
yeah.
because he might have
Yeah.
actually been some sort of a version of that. And I
Yeah.
think the light on his head is reminiscent of, if I had to take a shot, of coal miners because they used to have a candle that sat right on the front of their head and they had that, doctors too, and they had that piece of metal that was had a concavity to it that sat behind it and the candle sat in front and that kind of helped them shine lights. The doctors could do surgery and whatnot.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And same thing with the miners, which is interesting because the coal is flammable, and the doctors at the time were doing surgery under ether. People were
Hmm.
under ether, and ether is highly flammable. So a lot of explosions, I imagine.
Yeah.
Ether can explode from feet away. You mean many feet away from it and detonate it. So yeah, I imagine having that candle in the front of your head wasn't a good idea for a very long time. But
God.
yeah, I imagine that's what that's where he's getting that from. If I had to take a
Yeah.
shot. But um, anyway, and you remember, if you remember the Scrooged story, the first ghost was the little girl, the jet lady. She's an angel wings. Remember, she keeps
Mhm.
punching him and beating him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the first
She
one,
was a
right?
very different version. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think she was the that version of that though. So she was small like a kid, but still an old person.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
borrowing a little bit with that. Anyway, so I don't mean to reference that, but that's just like the most modern version. If anybody hasn't seen this or doesn't know
Mhm.
this, they might know that.
Yeah.
But and then let's see. So he takes them, or the ghost takes them to uh,
Fezziwig.
Fizzywig's ball, which is his old business partner when he was a kid, or he was a young man. And Fezziwig was the exactly what Scrooge should be. He was a good
Mhm.
person, took care of everybody around him, and they seemed to take care of him.
Yes.
Um, and there's a scene in there that's really sad where he sees himself turn away his love of his life, and
Hmm.
and he loses her. Hey, you,
Hmm.
you went fuzzy. You know you're fuzzy right now.
It's just because I took a drink. It's fine.
I'll hurt. Oh, okay. Um, but yeah, he turns away the love of his life, and that's a hard one for him to see. But there's a
Hmm.
scene here where she's talking to him. This is his lady. Um, I guess kind of accepting it. I would
Hmm.
gladly think otherwise if I could, she answered. Heaven knows when I have learned a truth like this. I know how strong and irresistible it must be. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowless girl? You who, if if you vary confidence with her, weigh everything by gain, or choosing her, if for a moment you were false enough to your one guiding principle to do so? Do I not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow? I do, and I release you with a full heart for the love of him you once were. He was about to speak, but with her head turned from him, she resumed. You may, the memory of what is past half makes me hope you will. Have pain in this, a very, very brief time, and you will dismiss the recollection of it gladly, as if as an unprofitable dream from which it happened well that you awoke. May you be happy in the life you have chosen. Man, oh,
Wow.
that's sad. But she
So it
wrote,
seems like she's saying like, so allow yourself to feel this pain
Mhm.
and then dismiss it and just be happy in the life you've chosen.
Yeah. Oh, this is Edna. She's old. She's our
Yeah.
Christmas doll. Um, yeah, but you see that she said she's a dowerless girl.
Mm-hmm.
So she's poor. Because back then, that was one of the ways that fathers and older brothers would get them married off is to put a dowry with them. So essentially, they say if you marry this person, I'm going to throw in some money.
Yeah.
A lot of times the inheritance traveled with the girl so that she could bear sons. So they
Yeah.
would put that's been around forever. A lot of cultures have that, but she didn't have a dowry because that means she's poor. So she's very poor. So he wouldn't have made any money bearing her. And she's saying that you wouldn't choose me because there's no money in it. There's
Right.
nothing to gain from it, and
Right.
that's awful. So the love isn't even an issue at this point. She knows that it's all about the money.
Yeah.
But it's sad. It's so sad. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he lost his love over finance, but oh, that's such a sad scene. Let's see here. All right. So, well, shoot. I think I jumped a ghost, but it's okay. We're on oh no, the second, sorry. That was the third chapter, second spirit.
Yeah.
Um, this is the one that comes through and he's like a giant king.
Yeah. The Ghost of Christmas Present.
Oh, one I didn't reference for this. And do you remember Mickey's Christmas Carol? Or
Yes,
Mickey Mouse's
I love
Patrick?
that version. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, because that one, who is who's Scrooge? Is that the duck?
Uncle,
Scrooge?
yeah, Uncle Scrooge the duck. Yep.
Is it a duck? Is it a duck? It is a duck. Oh, and then also the Muppets did a Christmas Carol, live action,
Yes.
and that's awesome. You did I think you did a review on it.
I did. We did a live reaction on Real Takes and Movie Breaks. We're also going to be watching Mickey's Christmas Carol and
The
reacting
cartoon.
to it live.
It's a cartoon, right? We're talking about the
Yeah.
cartoon.
Yeah.
That both of those are excellent. I think the Muppets are. I loved the Muppets when I was a kid. I just loved
Yeah.
that. That was so. Yeah, that was the Muppets was amazing. Anyway, the Muppets were so good. That
Yeah.
live action stuff, you cannot beat that. Those characters. Anyway, I had a Kermit doll when I was a kid. A Kermit. I had Scooter, and my brother had Fozzie. Not Fozzie. He had uh, the dog that played the piano. Maybe his name was Dog. But yeah, we had all those when we were kids. So yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. I think Jim Henson died while I was young.
Yeah.
Yeah, he died of pneumonia. You know that?
Yeah.
A very easily curable sickness. He just
Yeah.
didn't want to take the medicine for it. Um, that's a shame. Let's see.
We are on the Ghost of Christmas Present.
Are we on yeah, we're on present.
Hmm.
Yes, and this is the scene that I liked the most of the entire story when I was a kid, and I
Hmm.
always thought it was really interesting. And there's many Mickey's Christmas Carol. I don't think the Muppets do it. I don't think hardly anybody does this scene, but the one with Patrick Stewart, they do this scene,
Hmm.
and it's such an important scene, but hardly anybody does it because it's so dark. But that's why I love it, and this is what makes Dickens so good at what he does because he throws in like a philosophical thing to it. But a lot of stories don't want this because it's hard. It takes it a really hard angle. And when you're doing like a kids thing, this one you can't throw that in there. You know what I mean? So I get why
Yeah.
they took it out. But anyway, so the second ghost is walking him around and he's kind of a kingly character and a big fella, like a daunting character. And he's got these kingly robes that are like long, look almost like he's wearing like a duster or a bed coat.
Yeah.
And they go all the way down to his ankles. And there's a scene where he's talking to Ebenezer Scrooge, and Ebenezer Scrooge notices a hand clawing at him underneath by his legs, a little hand coming out from underneath his robes. And this is what he says: "Forgive me if I am not justified in what I ask," said Scrooge, looking intently at the spirit's robe. "But I see something strange and not belonging to yourself, protruding from your skirts. Is it a foot or a claw? It might be a claw, for the flesh there is upon it," was the spirit's sorrowful reply. "Look here." From the foldings of its robe, it brought two children, wretched, abject, frightful, hideous, miserable. They knelt down at its feet and clung upon the outside of its garment. "Oh, man, look here. Look down here," exclaimed the ghost. They were a boy and a girl, yellow, meager, ragged, scowling, wolfish, but prostrate, too, in their humility. Where graceful youth should have filled their features out and touched them with its freshest tints, a stale and shriveled hand, like that of age, had pinched and twisted them, and pulled them into shreds. Where angels might have sat enthroned, devils lurked and glared out menacingly. No change, no degradation, no perversion of humanity in any grade, though all the mysteries of wonderful creation has monsters half so horrible and dread. Scrooge startled back, appalled. Having them shown to him in this way, he tried to say they were fine children, but the words choked themselves rather than be parties to a lie of such enormous magnitude. "Spirit, are they yours?" Scrooge could say no more. "They are man's," said the spirit, looking down upon them, "and they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. The boy is ignorance, and this girl is want. Beware of them both, and all of their degree, but most of all beware this boy, for on his brow I see the written, which is doom. Unless the writing be erased, deny it," cried the spirit, stretching out his hand towards the city. "Slander those who tell it ye. Admit it to your uh, factious purposes.
Facetious.
Facetious, Jesus, thank you. Facetious purposes, and make it worse, and bide the end." I don't know. Oh, and then
Yeah.
yeah,
I can see
we
why this part is omitted in some adaptations because it's
start.
dark. But I think like it's I mean, there's a lot of like moral lessons in this story, and this is just sort of a visual representation of the dangers of being ignorant, like ignorant about all the suffering in the world, the current suffering in this world here in this story. So, and then the girl is want. So,
They're
yeah,
both
I mean,
modeled
I like it.
children.
I like it. It's just a little darker, right? But
Mhm.
I
I like
think
that he
it's
models those two things as childlike, that it's
yeah.
ignorance and want. And then the
Hmm.
child, it's boy, so the genders have to have something to do with it. And the boy, which is more macho, so it's more the masculinity of the ignorance. The masculinity draws the ignorance, whereas the girl draws the want.
Yeah.
I just think and they cling to him because those are man's. Those are the children of man, are ignorance
Yeah.
and want. And
Yeah.
they make the world. It's just so it's such a dark direction to take the story, because the story up until now has some fanciful and some magical things happening, but nothing like this. Like this, demons haven't gotten in there yet. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
type of way. I don't know. It's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, but that's one of my favorite scenes. I think I didn't highlight all the way through, but that's um uh but oh, and then he says Scrooge is trying to deal with them as if they're just children, they're just poor people. And he says, have they no refuge or resources?" cried Scrooge. And then the ghost says, "Are there no or no, this is Scrooge. "Are there no prisons?" said the spirit, turned on him for the last time with his own words. "Are there no workhouses?" The bell struck 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's because Scrooge had said that before in the story when somebody
Right.
said something about poor people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's still indicative of today though,
Hmm.
because that's when people see homeless people, they call the police on them. So
Yeah.
we still want that. The ignorance and the want are still there. We want to get them out of our sight. We don't care to solve their problem. We care to solve ours, which is to see them, to see them and to to acknowledge them. So we send them off to prison.
Right.
Um, yeah, and prison's kind enough to put
So
them to
we
work.
don't have to feel bad for them.
Yeah, we wait as long as they're out of sight. Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
they're out of sight. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's terrible. But
Right.
anyway, but yeah, that's one of that's my favorite part in that entire story for sure. Um, but all right, let's keep moving here. We're almost. Um. Oh, and so this is the final ghost scene. I don't know. Is this is enjoyable, right? Are we still going through this? This is. I don't want this to be like boring. Um. That it's kind of because we're kind of jumping around the story.
Yeah, no, so
No,
we're on to he
no big
joined
deal.
it once again and
No, I
wondering
got it. I got
why.
it. I
Yeah.
just, I just didn't want it to. This isn't coming across like it's disjointed, right? Because
No,
it's still like
no.
a flow through. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Just asking.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So he's at this point he's with the third ghost, and the third ghost kind of has, to me, from especially since all the other movies and representations of it, but even in this story, the ghost kind of has that death look, right? Like the guy
Hmm.
with the sickle and the black shroud. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm getting from this ghost. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where we get that ghost from, right?
Yeah.
Because it's in all the other stories. So
Right.
this was, yeah, and it's that one in every story when they use that same character, he's portending death. He's he's letting you know that there's something coming and it ain't going to be good for you when he
Right.
shows up. So maybe this is where this comes from. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Hmm. He joined it once again and wondering why and whither he had gone, accompanied it until they reached an iron gate. He paused to look round before entering. A churchyard, here, then, the wretched man, whose name he had now to learn, lay underneath the ground. It was a worthy place, walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds. The growth of vegetation's death, not life, choked up with too much burying, fat, with repleted appetite, a worthy place. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. He advanced toward it trembling. The phantom was exactly as it had been, but he dreaded that he saw new meaning in its solemn shape. Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point, said Scrooge, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only? Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends to which, if preserved in, they must lead, said Scrooge. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it thus with what you show me. The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept toward it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Dun dun
Dun,
dun.
dun, dun, right? Oh, his grave isn't even kept up. Oh,
The
it's so
warning.
sad.
It's a warning of unchecked selfishness.
Yes,
What can
yes.
happen if you don't check yourself
Those
and
little
ask
ghastly
yourself if you're
children
selfish or not?
clinging to those guys' legs. That's scarier than this. What do you think? Would you
Yeah.
be would you be scared more by the two kids that with that whole story with the kids than you would if you seen your own grave? I would.
I think that no, I think the warning about the future is scarier um
You
because
think the
it's
grave is
your
scarier?
future,
Yeah.
like it's a lot
Okay.
more personal. So
It is certainly personal. Oh.
so
So okay, so and then what in Mickey's A Christmas Carol and in Scrooge, they have kind of like a flash and then they're inside the casket and it's burning, right? They're
yeah.
pushing it inside flames. I think
Yeah.
both of them do that. Yeah, Scrooge does that for sure. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. What he wakes up and it's Christmas morning. They've spared his life, and all the doves are flying and and he runs through the window and threw up the sash and opened the window, and yeah, anyway, so just like the fall.
He's like,
Um,
I get a second chance. It's
and then he
Christmas
calls to that
Day.
boy and says,
I
"Is
haven't
that
missed it.
is that goose still in the window at the store?" And the kid says, "Oh, it's there." And he's like, "Go buy it and deliver it to uh Cratchit."
Yeah.
You know, I gather from that store is open on Christmas Day, which is a little weird. And
Yeah.
second, that I feel like that goose is pretty cheap now, because if nobody buys it today, it's probably not going to be like, there's no refrigeration and
Right.
it's sitting in a warm room, so you don't want to eat that now because it's going to get somebody sick. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, you could have left it outside; it would have been better off, because the cold outside would have kept it from. But yeah, you don't want to eat. I mean, that bird. How many days has that bird been hanging
Yeah,
indoors?
it's not
Dead.
exactly realistic.
Yeah. I guess salmonella was on the rise back then. So he just pretty
Mm.
much had salmonella delivered to Bob Cratchit. That's how Tiny Tim dies. Salmonella.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
I know. God blesses everyone. Do you want to read the last one? Read the last one.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll
This
read
is the
the
finale.
beginning of this. So he wakes up and
Oh, God, sorry.
he realizes that it's still the present day. I will live in the past, the present, and the future, Scrooge repeated, as if he scrambled out of bed. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees. Old Jacob on my knees. So he's rejoicing because he realizes he has another chance and the future doesn't have to be the vision he saw.
Mhm.
And I'll scroll to the bottom here. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded them, for he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good, at which some people did not have their fill of laughter on the outset, and knowing that such as these would be blind anyway, he thought it quite as well that they should wrinkle up their eyes in grins, as have the malady in less attractive forms. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. If any man alive possess the knowledge, may that be truly said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone.
I used to think it was God blesses, but it's not. It's God bless us, everyone.
Yes, God
Yeah.
bless all of us.
Yeah, I always thought it was God blesses, like he was
That's
doing a
funny
verb,
you
but it's
thought
not.
that. Yeah.
But it
No.
may. Mm,
So the story ends with that last God bless us, everyone. I
mhm,
like how here it talks about how Scrooge is sort of like, let them laugh, you know. Laughter
mhm,
is a good thing, and how he had his own laughter in his heart now.
mhm.
Uh, so that's a nice way of ending it. I definitely feel like reading this is definitely a different experience than watching, productions of it.
I think it's
Just because,
philosophical, right? Isn't it?
well, the way it's worded too. I mean, what year was this written again?
Oh, what did I say? I said, let's see, the story. I just had that a second ago.
Anyway, my point
Original
is like the language is
1840
so
something?
different. It's
1800.
um it's not as easy to kind of digest because if you're living in 2024, the language is so different.
It's still
Um,
good. Yeah.
but
Mhm.
it was definitely fun reading parts of this classic tale.
But
I like the
so
symbolism. I like I like starting with sort of like the emotional isolation he feels, and
Mhm.
he's lost sight of any joy. And I just love the gradual change experiencing the past, the present, and then the future. I mean, I just love a good character arc in any story. Like when somebody sort of learns the error of their ways and gets a second chance. I feel like so many stories have have sort of replicated that formula,
Mhm.
but not necessarily. Like I feel like this is sort of like the best story that does that.
Mhm.
That you have a character who's flawed, selfish, and then the transformation and redemption story. I just don't think this story is ever going to die because it's told in a way that's just so powerful compared to the more modern kind of
Mhm.
retelling, I think.
And you see, there's a so this time period, 1800s, what you had your different political parties, but I think it was more and Whigs and Republicans. I don't know if they were coming up yet, but government didn't have a place necessarily yet. So it was all capitalism.
Yeah.
So everybody was kind of so we still have, in other words, to push it forward to the future, we still have this conversation in a microcosm now. If you look at it, so like from a Republican perspective, is that commerce should run unchecked and business will solve all our problems. It will drive costs down, and everybody, poor and rich alike, will do well. And then Democrats come back and say, well, no, we need government implementation to help with poor people because they're getting taken over by rich people, are running amok, and there's too many poor people in the streets, so to speak. And
Yeah.
both have interesting opinions, but we're still having a microcosm of this same conversation. Not to
Yeah.
say one's right or wrong; they both have
Yeah.
interesting caveats. But back then, that's essentially what Dickens is pushing is
Yeah.
that
I mean, he's
yeah,
talking about
business unchecked.
the
Yeah.
inequalities of Victorian England
Hmm.
in the 1800s, but we still have inequalities today. And
Yes.
people still talk about that. Like, do the people that have money or more money, do they have responsibility to take care of the poor?
Hmm.
You know, it sort of raises that question, like, um, what, how much should we take responsibility for people less fortunate?
Hmm.
So,
And Dickens, that's kind of his shtick is that if a poor person enters his story, they're immediately thought virtuous because of their poverty. But another position might be that it's a vice. A vice is what got them there. That they're not virtuous. They're the opposite of that. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's one way to interpret it. I don't know if I interpret it exactly that way, but
Mhm.
I see what you mean. I mean, just
Mhm.
because there's nothing in here to me that suggests he's saying just because someone's poor, that means they're virtuous. To
No,
me, he's just
I
saying
don't.
that if you have a lot of money, why not use some of your spare change to help those less fortunate, regardless of how they got there?
No, I'm just saying that when they're described in the story, we don't necessarily hear a lot of description as to how they got there. It's
Yeah.
just they shouldn't be there. That's why I say I kind of it's almost as if they're a virtuous character
Well,
by fact of
he
omission.
definitely
You know?
writes those characters with a sympathetic
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
lens. He's sympathetic, but he's not saying they're virtuous. He's just saying this is sad that they're in this situation.
No, I got you. I'm saying this by omission, meaning that not describing how they got there, but saying that they're there. That's the other side of the coin would say that um, they got there because something was wrong. It wasn't. They
Mhm.
didn't get there because the like Scrooge didn't stick it to them. They got there because of something they didn't do. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's Dickens. He's uh, I don't know. He's an interesting character. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah. I like the juxtaposition though. It's that rich and poor thing. I think that's interesting.
right. And there's
Um,
nothing in here. I mean, the story is about Scrooge. The
yeah.
main characters aren't um the poor people. So he doesn't go into details about how the poor became poor. the story's about Scrooge,
Mhm.
which is somebody who is a miser who
Mhm.
loses touch with the love of his life because he puts all of his attention on making
Money.
money. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily like see that he's saying uh the poor just because you're poor you're virtuous. I don't get that. But I
But I mean that, yeah, I get you. I get you. I
yeah.
just it seems like he sets up the story that the rich people are rich and Scrooge is a bad guy because he's all about money and the poor people are good because they're not. But then the thing that they're not really concerned with is the thing that's kind of drove them to that state of need. You know what I mean? Like in other words, like his Bob Cratchit, the guy who works for him,
Mm.
he seems like a good fella and he's described as being a nice guy and does well and everything, but he's still poor. And he's not providing what he needs to for his family, but it's
Mm.
still like he's still a good person.
Well,
You know what I
because
mean? Yeah.
he's working hard.
Should
Like
be. Yeah.
it shows that Bob Cratchit is working hard, working really hard for a boss who doesn't really compensate him fairly, right? But
Could be. Yeah.
that's just
Could be.
one character. I don't know if you can I don't know if it's fair to say Dickens writes every poor character the same.
Mhm.
Um, because like I feel like he's just saying like whether somebody's poor for this reason or that reason, it's still sad to see someone suffering.
It is.
So,
Yeah.
um,
No, I agree. I agree. I think I do think that's kind of a thing for Dickens, but I get what you're saying.
yeah,
I think that I mean, he did a tale, or no, he did, Oliver Twist, and Oliver Twist that's the same time. Please, sir, may I have some more?
yeah,
That thing. Yeah. So the poor
yeah,
kid. Oh, but, anyway, but yeah, it's an interesting time, but that's, like I say, we still have this type of conversation to this day is
yeah.
that should we care for, should you care for people, that are in a bad way. Um, uh, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, my brother and I were talking about this the other day that it's bizarre that in the world we live in currently that there's even homelessness in this
Mhm.
country. That there's homelessness. People
Yeah,
currently, right now, do not have a home.
right,
They don't have four walls around them. They don't have a roof. They're in the elements right now, which will kill you early. Just
right.
living in the elements like that will kill you. Um, the temperature and what as cold as it is, cold outside.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's our world right now. So in other words, the philosophical bent, however it may be portrayed in the story, we still haven't figured it out. We haven't got an answer yet because we still have those same poverty stricken people. I mean, we don't have as many,
yeah.
but still have them.
Yeah, it is
And
crazy in 2024 that homelessness still exists, despite, there's a lot of homeless shelters and there's a lot of like programs that are built to help those that are struggling.
Mhm.
But it's still a problem. So
Some of it could be that because there's, like I say, there's those this time period, and even today, there's the very two distinct arguments, which is capitalism. If you just push capitalism and let it push all the way in, the things will be so cheap, and capitalism will solve everything, and everybody will get a seat at the table. And then there's another side that says there's more of a socialistic version. Socialism can come through, and everybody gets an even share.
mhm.
But I feel like probably both sides have an interesting approach to it. Both sides want to do well,
Yeah.
but that both sides butt heads so much that that's why we're still in the same spot because we're getting a little bit of each, and so we don't get enough of either.
Yeah, I feel like people need to agree more in order for there to be change. We all have to kind
Yeah.
of agree on how to make those changes. But
Mhm.
anyway, outside of like economics or politics, I feel like
Sorry,
this
I've been reading a
story
bunch of socialistic literature, so sorry.
yeah, I feel like
Anyway.
this story is mostly about redemption, second chances, and
Mhm.
it presents the idea that it's never too late. Even if you're an older person, in your 70s or whatever, it's never too late to change and
Mhm.
to be a better person. And it's about generosity, family, goodwill, which I think those are all, really good virtues, really good morals. So that's
Mhm.
why I think this story has remained popular throughout the test of time because
You
those are
wish,
very human things
would you have
that,
liked to have seen him get the girl back? Because he doesn't get the girl back. He
yeah.
lost her.
No, I think that the story wouldn't be as powerful if he gets the girl back. Uh,
But you know, I mean, that's a common thing. Like when they redo stories for the now, they redid the story. Actually, in the story, Scrooged, he gets the
he
girl
does
back at
the
the
girl,
end.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So
feel
they
like
always got to have the heroine in there. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that in some way it cheapens it a little bit. I kind of like that because it shows that there are consequences. Like
Yeah, that's good.
without showing that there's consequences for I read a quote one time that says it's not money that destroys people, it's the love of money, the illusion of money, the obsession with money that
Mhm.
destroys people.
That's fair.
So I feel like to show that there's consequences that you lose if you care more about money than people. So I feel like the fact that he loses the girl shows that there's consequences for his actions. But at the end, he becomes more generous and he forgives himself. And so he finds joy from just giving, from just being generous. He finds joy within himself. And I think that's actually more powerful than like, oh, I win the girl, you know?
Mhm. If
So,
you think if he would have gotten everything back, it may not have been a good enough lesson.
yeah,
The consequence. I think that's fair.
yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah. No,
But
it's
this is fun
yeah.
to read some of the text because I haven't read the text yet. So if you're listening to this, comment below. Let us know what your favorite part of the text is or what your favorite adaptation of the story is. Let us know your thoughts.
Please.
Um,
And
I think,
Dickens, that's because this story's so well written and so vivid in the imagery and so philosophical. I think that's why this story continues to be redone because
yes.
it's so easy to read that and go, man, I could do this with that. I could do this with that because it's got so broad ranging the way
Yeah.
it's set up. That this it's so good. Yeah. I mean, that's being visited by ghosts and everything. That's been around forever.
Yeah.
Being visited by Goeth's Faust, you know, the one where he is visited by the devil and gets all the powers.
Yeah.
Um, um, Cain, a Mystery. That's where it's Bowie. Or that's by Lord Byron, one of
Mhm.
the Romantics. That's where the guy is visited by a spirit, which ends up being the devil, and tempts Cain to kill Abel. So that story,
Yeah.
these stories have been around for a long time, but this one, it took it and made it. This is a holiday story.
Right.
This is Christmas. Like Christmas can't be Christmas if the story didn't exist.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's I don't know, and it's like I say, it's shaped the narrative of Christmas, right? That
Yeah.
Christmas is about giving and um, taking care of people. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
All
I don't
right.
know.
Well, if you're listening, let us know your thoughts. And if there are any stories you'd like us to read and discuss in the future, let us know. If you enjoyed our little podcast, subscribe to our channel, share it with
Please.
friends who might enjoy it. And we'll be back Monday doing a little live in the afternoon on Monday. I think the
Mhm.
plan is to start around 2. So, yeah, if you want to join then, and stay tuned. We're gonna upload a fun recording of the Grinch soon. So,
Yep, there we go.
but happy holidays, everyone, and hopefully we'll chat with you all soon. Thank you for watching, Mopar and Daniel and Sean. If you have any other comments, just comment in the description. All
Yay!
right, take care, everyone. Happy holidays.
Happy